Hey guys, you're watching the Best Practices Show where we take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all over the world. And I know what you're thinking, I need more new patients, but today we're going to take a deep look at how you don't always need new patients and how you can easily grow your practice without spending a ton of money with my good friend Laura Hatch from Front Office Rocks. Do not miss this. Do me a favor, grab a pen and hit the share button. We'll see you in a few seconds. Hey guys, welcome back to the Best Practices Show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for sharing. And we are just having a ton of fun doing this. And we're up over 30,000 followers now. And it hasn't even been a year as we're getting into season 2. So we're crazy grateful. Couple show notes before we jump in and get started. We are shooting this live on Facebook. So if you have questions and they come up, add them to the feed. And I'll ask Laura directly while we're on the show, and we'll get the answers straight from her. Or if you're watching these later on, feel free to add questions to the feed, and you'll see Laura's going to get back to you with a great, thoughtful answer. So today we're going to be talking about a very important subject, one of the most important things that comes up a lot in dentistry, which is new patients, with my good friend Laura Hatch. But Laura, I know who you are. You've been on many times before. But if people don't know who Laura Hatch is, tell everybody, who's Laura Hatch?
Well, I'm excited to be back. I think I was one of the first guests on your show, and I'm excited for you guys in your second season. You're doing a great job. I'm Laura Hatch. I am an office manager. I got into dentistry in 2002 and started and grew 2 practices, one on the East Coast and one on the West Coast. So I'm in San Diego, California. Opened the second practice on the West Coast in 2007. In a very competitive market, 20 minutes away from Mexico, and open fee for service, and have a very successful dental office in San Diego. So I realized a few years ago when I got into dentistry, there was no real training for front office team members. I kind of just had to figure it out. I knew sales, I knew customer service, I knew, marketing and selling. I didn't know anything about teeth, numbers, surfaces, practice management software. And so over the years, I've had to hire so many different employees that I had to reteach them, teach them in and out of network, teach them how to answer the phones. And a few years ago, I would, out speaking to dentists, and I hear dentists saying they always have to hire somebody with Dentrix experience or EagleSoft experience. And it was really frustrating to me because not that you don't have to hire dental people, that they're not good, but you can also hire somebody without dental experience and teach them the dental. So I had the idea with Front Office Rocks to do video training. And so I'm a trainer. I have a website online that offers training from, what is in and out of network, what's a dental code, all the way through how to have, a conversation with your doctor about, as an office manager and anything between, scheduling, getting patients to show up, confirmation calls, case acceptance, everything we do, all the nitty gritty we have at the front desk. Started it about 5 years ago, and it has taken off. It's my full-time business now. I am here to help dentists and front office team members do better, to have more control in the front. I was married to a dentist during dental school, and they didn't teach anything about the front office. They taught you, clinical. They taught you how to hire assistants that you like and hygiene. But when you walk through the reception area, you have no idea what's going on in the front office. And so I want to change that. And so that's why I started Front Office Rocks. And I'm not a consultant. I don't go in office. I have no desire to go in office. I do everything online.
Yeah, and you just recently wrote a book, which we're going to talk about, and I'm so fascinated. What's the name of the book?
It's called Dentist, Step Away from the Drill.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to change how dentists look at the front office, and it's, you're not going to fix your front office with production. You really got to know what's going on in the front. So
yeah, and you said, I'm going to get a copy, and it's going to be signed. So
yes.
Thank you. So you got to get it. We're going to talk about that in just a second, but this is a really big issue, Laura. You and I, we're both passionate about this because a lot of times dentists just take team members and they often throw them into this role And it's not that they don't do this, they don't do this intentionally, but oftentimes this person in the role up front becomes undervalued, and then the dentist doesn't know what they're doing. So this becomes a huge problem. And then the dentist just puts more pressure on the team members up front, right?
Yeah, and it's a cyclical thing. So it's not like there's one magic thing that's going to fix the problem. I mean, think about when you were first a dentist or first a receptionist or whatever in your dental office, and you were so excited. You'd go in Monday morning, I'm going to rid the world of cavities and gum disease. And now we wake up on Monday and we're like, oh, I got to go to work. It's kind of it's changes over time because, as a new employee, you get thrown to the wolves. I mean, I remember first time I sat at the front desk of a dental office and the phones are ringing and people are asking me EOB and SOB and, in and out of network. And I had no idea what I was talking, what was going on. The doctor's coming up, wants to fix the schedule. The hygienist is coming up, where's her patient? So you get kind of beaten up at the front office, in the front desk, and there's not really good training. You have other people who show you how to do things, but just because you know how to do something doesn't necessarily make you a good trainer. So then you pick up other people's bad habits. We don't really teach the why, like why are the things we're doing are important. And the doctor really never gets to know what should be happening in the front office. They kind of just rely on, I hope they know what they're doing. Or, I'm crossing my fingers they can get the schedule filled. And that's not the way. As an owner, that's not the way to run your business. And so I'm trying to change our philosophy about the front office. I named it Front Office Rocks for that reason. I feel like we're rock stars. We are the first and last impression for every patient in the practice. And so I need the doctors to understand how important the front office is and value their front office team. And I need the employees, the front office team, to realize you're rock stars. You make that experience for the patients and really try to invest in the front office.
Absolutely. And I want to speak to both ends of that too, because while as a doctor, when you get the right person, it can change your life. And, investing in a team member, it's not a cost anymore. That's an investment, because with any investment, they're going to grow and there's going to be return. Now, on the other end too, as a team member, some team members go, well, my doctor, I think one of the things, if you're watching this in your team member, is investing in yourself is one of the best things you can do. So just take everything. When Laura shares some of her thoughts today, watch more podcasts, just become more valuable to a practice. And you're going to see the owner will notice soon enough.
Actually, when I speak with front office, because I do training around the country with front office team members, and I hear team members complain that their doctor doesn't compliment them enough. Right. The doctor doesn't. When was the last time you actually complimented your doctor? It goes both directions. So if you want the doctor to invest in you, you need to invest in them. If you want the doctor to respect you and give you more responsibility, then you need to step up. It's not I've worked here 5 years, I deserve this. It goes back and forth. Now, dentists, in general, haven't been trained in a lot of this. They weren't trained in dental school to communicate and sit down with the team members and have two-way communication. And so that's part of what I wrote in the book, is really trying to get that communication started between the front office and the dentist. In fact, one of my favorite things is I launched the book last week, and I had one of the team members who bought my book. She came up and she said, can you sign the book for my doctor? And I said, yeah, definitely. I said, what do you want me to write? And she said, Dr. So-and-so, read the highlights. And I said, what are you talking about? And I looked through the book. She had already highlighted
that's awesome.
In the book. So all that's doing for me is it's helping them get into communication, because I think that doctors, you don't know, are they answering the phone well? Are they offering the appointments the way we want them? So let's get that communication started. You know how to run the back, you know how to get good assistance, but what about up front?
Yeah. And let's go into the essence. You and I talk about so many things, but today we're going to be talking about new patients, because tell us why it's so important to have this conversation, because you're out there listening to people and every dentist is putting pressure on. We need more. Tell us what you see.
So I agree. Every office needs more new patients. Right. So training your team and investing in your team and making sure that they're doing amazing in that first phone call and that first experience for the patient is invaluable, because you never get a second chance to make a new first impression. Right. And so a lot of times dentists or dental offices will try the new employee out on the phones. That's the worst thing you can do, because they don't know, they're nervous, they're learning everything. Maybe they're not very good. And we're trying them out on the phones, and that was a potential new patient. So I'm all about, the importance of new patients. But one of the things you and I were talking about that I really want to hone in today is keeping your current patients happy. So many dentists it's about the new patients. I get 50 new patients a month. I get 100 new patients a month. Well, that's awesome. But if you're losing 70, 90 new patients out the back door, you're actually not growing. You're shrinking.
Right.
And we are always on our best behavior. I kind of, align it with dating. Your first date, we're on our best behavior when the new patient comes in, and we're all super nice and cheery. We're so excited about new patients. But when our patients who've been with us for 10 or 15 years come in, are we giving them the amazing experience too? Because we work so hard to get new patients, but our existing patients are getting marketed to by all our competition. They're getting, in my house alone, I get it from 7 different dentists in our area that are marketing to me all the time. When I'm going into my current dentist's office, if I start to feel like I'm just a number, or now I'm just an insurance plan, or now I'm just we got to get you in the schedule so we don't have a hole, and I'm not feeling that love anymore, that you're treating me like a real person, might be tempting to go, let me go see what this other dentist is offering, free whitening for life or a new patient special. So what I wanted to talk about is it isn't just always about new patients, it's about keeping the patients in your practice, retaining them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you could say this confidently, when you get really good at this, first of all, it doesn't cost anything. And secondly, these people are trying to get into your office. And all too often, we don't even let them in our office. It's amazing to me the number of new patients that leave without an appointment, or the number of hygienists that don't, really focus on pre-appointment, that patients just leave for whatever reason and they don't stay in the schedule, and you see these patient bases shrink.
Yeah. You and I, and this goes back to one of our interviews we actually did, last year at some point, we were talking about the importance of answering the phones.
Right.
And somebody made a comment in one of the side chats on this when we were talking about, that's why they were glad, it was a front office employee, that's why they were glad that they had a phone system that would tell them if the call coming in was a new patient or an existing patient. Because when they were busy doing things, they would just let the current patient phone call go to voicemail. They would only answer the new patient call. Wow. And she was taking what we were saying about the importance of answering phones and then took it to this extreme where she's not answering the phones for their existing patients. Those existing patients are more valuable than a new patient. Honestly, they're the ones who, once they've been with you a long time, higher case acceptance, they trust you, they refer to you. If you're ignoring their calls because you're too busy doing an insurance claim or doing something else, there's a good chance that patient's going to leave. And we may not even know. The dentist may not even know that these patients are leaving because of the customer service they're getting in the front.
Yeah, so let's unpackage this. Even if I'm a team member watching this going, Laura, I totally understand, but the phone doesn't stop ringing. Do you know what I mean? And I got all these patients coming out, and they come out, and I look at them, and now I got to sell the dentistry. I got to go through the fees, and the phone's ringing. I got patients coming in here. What do I do?
Yeah. There's a lot of options nowadays. First of all, it's getting your dentist to understand if you need help in the front. I think a lot of times dentists don't understand what we do in the front. And so you need to make sure that we have enough help in the front. But you also have to make sure that you're being as efficient as possible in the front. I walk into a lot of dental offices and I see a lot of chit-chatting, gossiping, enjoying Facebook. Like, come on, people. When you come to work, we are here for our patients. If we're not taking care of our patients, they can go somewhere else. So you need to be giving it your all. Right. The next thing is to recognize that the patients in the office and the patients on the phone are both valuable. I have 2 different philosophies. Like if you call in to the office, my biggest pet peeve is when I call a dental office and the recording says, if you've reached our voicemail during work hours, we must be helping another patient. Please leave a message. That drives me batty because all you're saying to the patient calling in is the people in the office are more important than you. Right. And that's not the case. This could be a new patient, this could be a current patient that's calling in ready to do the 6 implants that the doctor's diagnosed to them, and we didn't even answer the phone. Mm-hmm. So my 2 big things are, I think your phone should be answered Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, minimally, like no question about it. And there are 2 things that I think that happen in the front. Either one, we don't have enough support in the front to handle all the phone calls and the patients in front of us and all the things we're doing. There's lots of companies out there now that will help answer phones. And they're not just answering services. They actually help schedule the patients for you. They help the overflow of calls. So, a couple that I know, Golden Goose, UIC Dental, there's companies out there who can help with the phones. The other thing is we have to be good at multitasking in the front. So one of the things, I was in an office recently and the patient standing in front of the team member and the phone rings and rings and rings. And then the patient standing there and it rings and she lets it go to voicemail. And I said afterwards, why did you let it go to voicemail? Well, this patient's more important, so I let it go to voicemail. That's not the case. This patient's just as important as the one in front of you. We have to be, with good customer service, in control of what's going on in our environment. So I would rather say to the patient in front of you, do you mind 1 second if I grab this call? Most patients are going to say, no, that's fine, go ahead. Now take the phone call and take a message and call that patient back. So in a nice way, I have a patient in front of me. If you don't mind, give me a couple minutes. My name is Laura. Your call's important to me, and I want to give you a call back to handle this. You can take care of both patients at the exact same time. Because if you don't, if you put, one of the things people put patients on hold, drives me crazy, because the patient on hold, even though it's a couple minutes, it feels twice as long. And then inevitably the person in front of you starts with the question of, oh, by the way, last time I was in, the EOB said this, and when do my kids need appointments? And next thing you know, when you thought you were almost done, it goes 5 minutes longer. My other thing then is when this patient leaves, you can tell I love the subject, right?
Yeah.
When this patient leaves in front of you and goes home, the next time they call the office, if the phones just ring and ring and ring and ring and goes to voicemail, what is this person thinking? The one that was just standing in front of you is going, oh, they're just ignoring my call. They must have somebody there. And so then the next time they get a flyer or they hear about another office, they go, maybe I'll give that office a call because they don't ignore my phone calls, right? So it's all about the recognizing the importance of people in front of you, but the phones are the most important piece of technology in our dental office. That's our connection to the outside. We can't ignore the phones. We have to prioritize that, and we have to give amazing customer service to the patients in the office.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing I would add, I could just hear a little bit of reverberation. Can you hear that?
I can't hear it, but you can hear yourself apparently.
Apparently I can, but that's not new for me. I can hear voices at times. What? No, one of the other things I would just add on that too is that if you're a dentist watching this, you might say, well, that's true. And a team member is to have some type of a system that lets you know how many calls you're actually getting at what times of day, because what that'll do is it'll just calm you down and you won't feel the need. Once you have data, if those calls are coming in, and you said Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, and you don't panic as much. You know when your high call volumes are. And as a team member up front, you can rearrange your work week or work day so that you're ready for those call volumes.
And think about it. I talked about this, you and I, last time, about we tend to go on voicemail over lunch, right? And when do people who work 40 hours a week call in to schedule an appointment, pay the bill? They call in over their lunch break. Right. And now there's amazing systems out there that will help you track what's going on in your phones. And if you look, because we had it at our dental office, between 11 and 1 was our highest call volume, always, every single day of the week, 11 and 1. Well, a lot of offices will let the front office team go to lunch and throw a dental assistant on the phone during that time, or the new person on the totem poles answering phones. If anything, it should be the opposite. Your best team members who really know how to handle the phones and those questions should be working between 11 and 1 and not, letting everybody go when we have the most amount of calls coming in, because what we want is the phone ringing. We want those calls coming in for whatever reason, and we want to make sure we can handle those calls.
Absolutely. When it comes to patient retention, there's a lot of things that add to that, but what's one of the single biggest misconceptions or missed opportunities that dentists have when it comes to this kind of stuff and keeping existing patients? What would you say? So
a step away from the drill dentist. Dentists tend to focus on production. Let's get more patients in. Let's get them in same day. Let's get them in faster. Let's make hygiene in 7 hours. Let's do it in 40 minutes. Let's do assisted hygiene. It's about production. And I think you should be efficient. Don't get me wrong. I think you should have systems in place. But we have to remember those are people that we're dealing with. These are patients. And especially with patients paying more out of pocket than ever before, whether you're fee for service or in network, people are paying for more out of pocket and they want to feel a value for what they're paying. And if they feel that they're just getting squished in and pushed in and they're not getting the attention that they deserve, there's a higher chance that either they're going to leave your practice or they're at least not going to do the dentistry in your practice because they don't see a value in what they're spending. I talk to dentists all the time and I ask them, how are your relationship with your patients? What's the relationship like? And, dentists, oh, it's amazing. My My patients love me. I have an amazing experience with them. If you think about it, we only see our healthy patients 2 times a year. Mm-hmm. So if we're doing, let's even say we're doing 1 hour prophy appointments. So 2 hours a year, we're seeing our healthy patients. And the dentist is only seeing them 20 minutes a year, 2 10-minute exams.
Yeah.
Right? If you're following all of that. So you see somebody 20 minutes a year and you have an amazing experience with them, amazing relationship with them, right? It's there's so much more to it than that. It's about, when they walk in the door, do they feel like they are welcome? When the hygienist goes to get them from the reception area, do they feel like it's that they're happy to be there? Does the receptionist or the hygienist, the assistant, talk to the patient? Or are they so busy turning over rooms and sterilizing and the patient's just sitting there, looking at the cobwebs on your wall? Like, all of these little things matter, but dentists, we push and push and push production in, and we forget about that experience because people don't know if you're a good dentist or not. They don't know your margins. They don't know your technology and how great it is. They know their experience. And if they feel like the experience isn't amazing, there's a really good chance that they will potentially leave. And we need to make sure that we're focusing on that experience.
Absolutely. And that's got to be something the doctor is extremely committed to, or else it just doesn't happen.
Right.
So absolutely. Yeah. Now, other metrics that are important, is there anything when you look at checking out a patient or hygiene reappointment or any of those things that everyone talks about, what are some of the insights you've learned over time in growing a patient base?
Well, I think that a few things. First of all, hygiene reappointment. We're lucky as small business owners. Many small businesses, the small business kind of flow is you get the new clients in, you give them an experience, a great experience or a bad experience, but they get an experience. You sell them on whatever you have to sell, whether it's food or clothes or whatever. You give them quality products. They go out and tell their family and friends. So same with us. We market for new patients. We give them an experience. We sell them on dentistry. They get their dentistry. They go tell their family and friends. But for our business, we have this whole nother part coming in, which is hygiene. We don't have to continually get new patients. Now, we want them, but we can build up this other avenue of keeping patients in. And those patients are so valuable to us because, why spend the money to market to get new patients if you're not working to keep the patients?
Right.
Those are patients that are going to go out and talk about you to your family and friends. We build trust with them over time. They get older. They need bigger treatment. They're finally ready to do the implants. And so we need to value our hygiene and our hygiene department as much as we value new patients, and which means the importance of getting patients to pre-appoint and keep them in the practice. I think I'm not a consultant, but the numbers I've heard is 95%. 95% should leave the office with their next appointment. Do you agree with that?
Totally agree with that. Now, there's a few crazies.
Yeah.
And we always want to set them free or don't, stop stalking them, which is a good thought. But yeah, when you, in really simple metrics, it's hard to get to 95%. Let's just say that because we look at a lot of these metrics, but that should be internally a goal. So if you're a hygienist watching this, you think, hey, look, I see 8 patients in a day. Set a goal. I'm getting all 8 of them. And here's what typically happens too. These patients leave. If you start tracking it yourself as a hygienist, you're going to see you don't get all of them, because you're going to have 2 that miss per day or 3, and every hygienist is like, no, I get them all. But if you start to examine them, you got 1 or 2 here that are like, oh, I didn't know my schedule. And then as a hygienist, you go, no, she's a good patient. Don't worry about that. But that happens all the time.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, I'm all for this, but there's a lot of software out right now, that metric software, because we don't know what's going on in the office. A lot of times, I'm sure you see it when you're talking to dentists, like, we pre-appoint everybody. But when you actually go look at the numbers, you're not. And so there's software out there that can help you track, what's going on in the practice. But one of the things that I get frustrated with is, so you're supposed to pre-appoint 95%. So at the end of the day, you only pre-appointed 70%. So what do you do with that number? Like, do you just look at it and go, oh, well, that sucks. Go home and call it a night? No, you have to actually be doing something to fix some of these systems. It's not actually that hard to get from 70% to 95% of getting patients to pre-appoint, but your team needs to be trained. Right. They need to understand the verbal skills. They need to understand why patients don't want to pre-appoint. Think about it. we put drills and needles in patients' mouths. They're paying us money to do it. When they're done with the cleaning, they want to go. They don't understand the importance of staying in the schedule and coming in every 6 months. That's our job. But if you've got an employee that is in the front that doesn't understand the importance of pre-appointment, and the patient comes up and goes, you know what, I'll just schedule. I'll call you later. And they want to be nice. They go, okay, give us a call. And out the patient goes. That's where we're losing patients. So training is so key to getting the employees to understand, the team to understand where our patients are coming from and where we need to be a little bit more persistent to make sure, we're getting these goals that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times it's just getting everybody in the right mindset that, hey, look, what you do is valuable. These patients do want to come back. So don't ever give them the option not to come back. And then secondly, what to say, because there are some things I love some of the things that you teach verbal skills. You don't have to have a dissertation for an hour. Sometimes it's just a simple phrase. Like you have a lot of them. What's a good phrase somebody can use?
What I say, because there's a couple ones these are pet peeves of a lot of my team members. And I'm like, this is just patience. You just deal with them. Like my favorite is when they come in or we say, hey, listen, let's get you appointed. And then we'll get you a text reminder, an email reminder of the day and time that you get scheduled. And they say something like, yeah, I know. You guys text me, email me, call me. Like, my gosh, there's no way I can forget the appointment. And I go, awesome. Well, we're glad you're here. And it's okay. Right.
Right.
My favorite is when people come up and they say, no, I don't like when it comes to scheduling hygiene. I think that's a lot harder to get the patient to pre-appoint than the doctor's schedule. Because the doctor's schedule, they know they need something. They're probably in pain. It's coming up sooner. It's going to be in the next week or two that they know their schedule. But for hygiene, they don't know what they're doing 6 months from now. I don't know what I'm doing 6 months from now. Like, that's the thing, right? So when we say, let's go ahead and get you scheduled for your next cleaning, the hygienist would like to see you in June. When would you like to schedule? Notice I said, when would you like to schedule, not do you want to schedule? And the patient goes, I don't know what I'm going to be doing 6 months from now. I'll just call you. And I always say, you know what, I understand, but life gets busy. We don't want to lose you. It's easier to put you in the schedule than to try to track you down later. Let's go ahead and get you scheduled now. We'll remind you a month in advance. Hopefully you're in Hawaii or something then, and you have to move it because you're on vacation. When do you want to schedule? Yeah. You just make it lighthearted. You make it and the patient goes, oh, okay, But if you're like, well, no, our policy is the doctor says every 6 months that's not, the patient doesn't care what your policy is.
Right.
You have to understand people are always going to say they don't want to schedule. It's our job to push them to get them to schedule, right? In a nice way, customer service, but because we know if they leave, the chances of them getting in the schedule is way lower than if we put them in the schedule now and try to keep them in the schedule.
Yeah, that's the key. And really presenting it as a benefit to the patient too. We got to keep you in our schedule because she's busy back there and her schedule fills up and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to get you in because we're growing, right. And it's true for a lot of hygienists, especially the ones watching this. They're like, we're crazy booked for months and months and months. We can't even keep our new patients or our existing patients in that we love so much. So that's where the benefit comes in having great verbal skills up front or even in the operatory.
Yeah, and I think that's perfect. Like if patients are like, I understand you want a 4:00 appointment. So if we don't book it now, there's probably a good chance there's not going to be a 4:00. Or you like right. Thursdays, or just to spin it so it's a win-win. Because if you're just telling the patient they have to, right. They're not going to want to do it. But if you spin it so it sounds like it's a win for them and a win for you, you have a higher chance of getting them to a point.
Absolutely. What's another thing that team members or dentists aren't really focused on that makes a big impact in the practice from your perspective?
Well, I believe that because I speak all about experience. That's my thing for patients. Their experience is how they're deciding, new patients and current patients, if they're going to do dentistry in your office from the very first moment they call in, when they walk in the door and they see the team, when they get walked in the back, all of that, subconsciously they're deciding, am I going to do treatment here? Am I going to be a long-term patient here? Am I going to trust this office? And many offices don't value that experience and they spend a little bit too much time gossiping and drama and slamming instruments in the back and whispering and not enough focus on the patients. Those patients pay our bills. Those patients are the reason we're here. And when you're behind closed doors whispering or you're behind the desk, even if you're talking about other patients and treatment and stuff, that person sitting in front of you is the most important person. Mm-hmm. So, when the patient sat in the operatory, the dental assistant should be in that operatory with them most of the time. I mean, if you have to go do something really fast, let the patient know where you're going. But don't just leave the patient sitting there wondering where you are. Don't leave a patient sitting in the reception area and ignore them because you've got to enter dental claims. Remember that the patient experience is what matters. And my biggest pet peeve is the whispering. There's absolutely no reason there should be any whispering in the dental office.
Wait. What are you talking about? Like
none. Yeah.
Who's whispering? Like, give us some
exactly.
insight, because I know exactly what you're talking about. But some people go, "Oh, we don't do that," and you go, "Oh, you do it all day long."
Yeah, so obvious whispering, drama between her and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's obvious. Like, don't do that. Like, think about in high school when there's two people whispering near you. What do you automatically assume they're talking about? You fill your head with all these stories. Right. And so and I don't know if I told you this in a past interview or not, but many dentists like to just avoid that. They just want to ignore it. And I worked at an office for a while that I went in, and there was a really pretty front desk, and it was check in, check out, really pretty. And in the middle of this front desk was a door. It was weird. It was placed in the middle of this beautiful. And I said, what is that door there for? Because the girl that sat here and the girl that sat there couldn't get along. So the doctor's solution was to build a door between them so they didn't have to see each other.
Wow. That's working together.
Right. And now neither of the girls are there, and there's this random door that doesn't make any sense. So when it really comes to drama and gossip and all of that, it's killing your practice because patients feel it. They know when there's drama, when the team's not getting along. And if you let it fester and grow, it's like a fungus. So there's that. Now, I was in another client's office, and I was watching when they would bring patients up at the end of their recare appointment. If the patient was healthy and all they needed was the next recare, the hygienist would come up. Patient was great. We need to schedule 6 months. Here, sign up for our little raffle. And they did this great handoff. And then the hygienist went back. When the patient needed treatment, what they did is they took the patient into the consult room right next to the front desk. Pretty glass consult room, but they closed the door on them. So they were like in a fishbowl. Then the hygienist came around, leaned down, and whispered to the treatment coordinator what the patient needed. So the patient sitting in the reception area, in the consult room, looking over and seeing the two whisper. Now the treatment coordinator is putting the treatment plan in. Mm-hmm. So the patient's sitting there by themselves for 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes. And then the treatment coordinator goes in to present the treatment. And so afterwards I said, what are you guys doing? And they said, well, we're talking about the treatment for the patient. And I'm like, it looks like you guys are whispering about the patient. They're like, well, it's HIPAA. It's privacy. We can't talk out loud, privacy. And I'm like, but the patient's thinking it just looked awful. And in their mind, they were doing the right steps. But I said, why don't we do the exact same conversation, exact same handoff in the consultation room together in front of the patient.
Yeah.
Right. This is what the patient needs. This is what the doctor talks to them about. Do you have any questions, patient? No. Okay, great. All of a sudden their case acceptance goes up because they're not whispering to each other about, what the patient needs.
Yeah, it's so important to be inclusive when it comes to this. And oftentimes patients need to hear it a couple times. They don't want to hear it just one time.
Yep. And these are the times where I get excuses when I talk to people. When let's say the assistant or the hygienist talks to the patient about what the patient needs, and the patient says, well, I'm not doing that. I don't have enough insurance this year. I'm not doing that. So then we run out and we grab the doctor behind the 12 o'clock and we go, patient's not doing that. She said she got another shot. So why are we whispering? Patient now can hear, just say the exact same thing in front of the patient. Doctor comes in, this is what the patient needs. She knows she needs it, but she says she's not doing it because of insurance. I told her blah, 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 blah. Have that conversation so that the doctor can address it with the patient. There's no reason that you should be whispering. No reason.
Absolutely. We've talked about the operatories, what happens back there, patient experience, totally agree. But let's talk about a little bit about follow-up systems for some of the team members of front, because I watch what they do and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person spends half of her day, if not 3/4 of her day, just following up with people. Are there any thought processes, streamlined, things that you think about that could make the job or task so much easier up front and also retain patients in a way that you don't have to track new ones?
Well, I just actually wrote an article about using the consultation room. So the first step, I think, is that we have to understand the importance of treatment plan presentations. Mm-hmm. Right now, what we do is we're doing it chair side. The doctor's telling the patient what they need. The patient goes, Doctor leaves. They go, what did he say? I don't understand. Then we walk them up front, and the only thing they really do understand is insurance and their pocketbook. So now we're presenting the most important part of the treatment plan presentation at the front desk, which is the worst place that you can do it. Mm-hmm. So I prefer to try to get as many patients to accept the treatment while they're in the office every time. So you want to set up the systems in your office to make sure that we're doing that the best we can. I think there's a lot of pretty consultation rooms and a lot of pretty offices that have the degrees on the wall and the pretty flowers, and they never get used. That there's a reason there's a consultation room. So if you have one, use it. If you don't, have the conversation in an area where you can really talk to the patient, because we want as much case acceptance as possible. Now, will everybody accept their treatment? No, they're going to go home. So there is going to be some follow-up. One of the two things that I suggest on this is, one, we work so hard to get the patient to understand their treatment. Patient has to go think about it or talk to their spouse or whatever. And then we don't follow up with them for 2, 3, 4 weeks because we're busy. And what is that patient thinking now? They there was this big urgency to do the tooth. Then they left the practice and now nobody's following up with them. How important is it? Maybe it's not important. Maybe they just wanted my money. Maybe they just wanted to use my insurance. So it's important to have systems in place to have follow-up. But I also think there's a ton of resources out there that you can use. It doesn't have to be one person who's all day long making calls. There's email messages, text messages. There's all of these great, I work with a few companies, RevenueWell and Yappy, and there's so many softwares out there that can help you connect with patients. And if you think about it, if you're calling and you're leaving voicemails all day long, that's not very efficient.
Right.
If you call my cell phone, it says, do not leave a message, text me, because I'm not going to call you back.
Yep.
Most people are not making a decision on a $10,000 treatment plan or a $5,000 treatment plan in the middle of the day when they're at work. They're going to do it at night when the kids are in bed and they finally have a chance to sit down. So an email is more effective. So making sure that you have multiple systems in place for the follow-up, because every patient's different. Everybody likes to be communicated to differently, and it's our job to reach them the way that they need to get the highest chance of case acceptance.
Absolutely. I think what you're saying is genius too, because even when you look at the metrics, one of the things that dentists don't look at is same day case acceptance percentage. They look at overall case acceptance percentage. They go, oh, we're doing good. But they don't realize that everybody's following them. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can speak from experience why you just said what you said is so important, because after they leave, it's so much harder to follow up with them.
And on the flip side, I'm going to say, because I just stumbled onto metric systems. I mean, there's Dental Intel, Practice by Numbers. There's a lot of great metrics out there. And I just stumbled onto it in the last year. And I do believe we still need to make phone calls. I think a lot of offices have gotten too busy, or they rely too much on technology. And I still think getting a voicemail, even if you don't talk to them, but saying, the doctor's concerned about your tooth, I'm going to follow up with an email. He wanted to make sure that you get it because we want to get you in. There's just something about that human connection.
Right.
But many dentists have no idea how many outgoing phone calls are happening in their practice. I know, talking to my doctors, it was, what are the girls doing up front? Well, they're busy. Great. Well, how many outstanding calls did they make? How many patients did they call today that are not in the schedule? Well, I don't know. But when I go up and say, what are they doing? They say, we're busy. Okay. There's a lot of busy work in the front. Don't get me wrong, but we need to prioritize importance, and we need to be reaching out to patients. There are a lot of patients who are not scheduled in your front.
Right.
And if you're not getting them and trying to find ways to get them back in, they're either not going to come back in or they're going to go somewhere else. So we need to make sure that we're reaching out to patients too.
Yeah, we got to be careful, because I could keep you on for like 3 hours because I have so many questions on this. So wait. I don't even know. But I want to go back to, because what you said is so good. Like, a lot of times when we talk about phones, the conversation naturally drifts to incoming calls. But team members should be trained on a multitude of outgoing calls. Now, everybody has their favorites, but what are your favorite outgoing calls that provide the most value to the practice? Do you have a couple that you say, hey, look, these are critical?
Well, I think there's the three. It's outstanding treatment calls, overdue recare calls, or recare calls to get patients scheduled, and then reactivation. When patients, what I teach and what I believe in is you try to reach out to the patient, 3 to 4 times for outstanding treatment. Now, depending on the severity of the treatment, maybe they need 6 or 10 calls, or maybe if it was just a filling or something smaller, you try to reach them to get them in 3, 4 times. And if they don't schedule, they're going to fall into your recare list now. We're going to get them in for the recare. Right. But we need to make sure that we're calling for outstanding treatment. We're calling for our recare patients, and then we're calling for reactivation. Because one of the things that I think is when patients leave, if they get out of the schedule, they don't think about us. I mean, they don't think, oh, I need to call the dentist. Oh, I need to make that appointment. I better handle that. It's our reminders that we need to get them back in, right? Yeah. Until their tooth hurts, we have to be the ones who are actively trying to reach them. So those are my three. Somebody that's not appointed, if they have outstanding treatment, if they're due for their recare, catch them when they're due. Try not to let them go into, 18 months, 24 months. But then if you do, I believe that you should continually call patients who are overdue until they tell you to stop or till they pass away. Because nobody's looking out for this part of our patient's health except for us. Nobody else is how are your gums? How are your teeth? It's just us. And so we have to make sure that our patients know we care about them.
Absolutely. And you and I are going to cover so many of these topics this year, but any last thoughts on how we can kind of change our focus from new patients to really retaining patients in our practice? Final thoughts on that?
If you are worried or concerned, go do a report in your practice management software to look at how many new patients you got last month, last year, last 2 years, and then how many you lost. I think the majority of dentists would find you're losing more than you're gaining. Yeah. And so like we talked about at the beginning, it costs a lot to get a new patient. It doesn't cost as much to keep an existing patient. You've already gained them as a patient. We need to keep them. So I believe you should invest in your team. I believe it shouldn't just be new team member training. It should be continual training. We get beat up in the dental office all day long, and we kind of get in bad habits, and we need to remind our team members why customer service is important, why it's important to greet our patients a certain way. So the best investment you can make in your practice is in your team. Yep. And so find a way. There's so many options, whether it's Front Office Rocks or listen to your webinar, to these live events. There's a lot of ways to bring training and enhancements into your team without even having to go to a conference. So find ways to make sure that you're continually investing in your team.
Amen. Because when you find the right people and you invest in them and they take off, it changes your life and your business. So
yeah, and then if your employees feel that way, they're going to take care of your patients. Absolutely. When your patients know they're getting taken care of because you're taking care of your team, that's how you're going to retain the patients long term.
It's great stuff. It's great stuff. Laura, I know everybody's going to want to copy your book. How can I find a copy of your book?
You can go right onto Amazon. It's the #1 bestseller right now in dental practice management. So it's a step away from the drill, and check it out there.
Took you 8 months to put it together, and I know it's really well thought out. I can't wait to get my copy.
There's an implementation manual that goes along with it too, because I understand dentists and how busy you get, and you read these books and you go, I'm going to do that, and then it doesn't happen. So there's an implementation manual that you can download with the book to kind of help you and handhold you through the process of trying to turn your front office into rock stars.
Absolutely. And speaking of rock stars, you're out there speaking on the circuit. You're speaking like more and more and more. So are you doing study clubs? What are you doing? Like, where are you speaking at now?
I'm doing a lot of study clubs. I'm a big supporter of ADOM, the American Association of Dental Office Managers. So I'm speaking a lot for them. I'm actually just spoke at the Rocky Mountain Dental Society, and there were lots of speaker scouts there. So I'm hoping to hit some of the bigger national meetings. But right now, if I can get in front of team members and help them understand this message. So if you go to my website, under speaking events, live events, I do 4 of my own every year, plus all the different conferences that I'm at this year.
Good work. Good work. Well, check it out. And we're going to have Laura back for a whole bunch of other topics. If you're watching this and you enjoyed this today, just do us a favor. Just hit the share button and share with your friends. Also, continue to add questions or comments or even topics.
I was going to say,
we'd love to hear from
Laura.
Laura.
Tell us topics, because you and I sit and go, what do we want to talk about? Let them tell us what we want to talk about.
I usually come up with at least 2 pages of things that we could talk about, but we'd love to hear from you guys and what you think are some hot topics in your office, and we'll put them together and bring you guys some solutions that you can use and use with your team. So Laura, thank you so much for being on. As always, I'm just so grateful for everything that you do. And we're grateful for you guys watching. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practice Show. You guys enjoy the rest of your day.